Hi, Victoria. Welcome to the Power Talk Show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Thank you so much for joining our channel or podcast today. So, before we start and dive into a conversation, can you run through about your professional background and what led you to start Silicon Valley Executive Academy?
Sure. I'm so happy to be here, Naveen. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Victoria Mensch, and I spent most of my career in high-tech industry, over 25 years. I worked in large corporations, in startups, in consulting businesses, always around innovation and emerging technologies. And most of my career was also spent in Silicon Valley, which I find is a magical space for those who really want to build a new business, who want to be at the cutting edge of innovation. There's so much talent here. There's so much motivation and ambition in Silicon Valley. So when I started thinking about Silicon Valley Executive Academy, that was the main motivation as well, to continue working in the innovation field, but also to have that expertise of Silicon Valley spread throughout the world. So many people are interested to come here, to work here, but the fact of the matter is that Silicon Valley is not necessarily a space. It is a space, it is a geography and a location, but it's also a mindset and an ecosystem. So you can actually get advantage of this, you can learn this, and you can model the same techniques, the same methods wherever you are in the world. And that's what Academy is doing,
Understood.
helping
Thank you.
you to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that information. Can you tell me like what kind of courses or services do you offer and who are you targeting?
We both offer services. So think about large companies in traditional industries, or any company actually in traditional industries outside the Silicon Valley. So you have your vision of how your business is growing. You've been doing this for quite some time. And then all of a sudden, something completely different comes from the corner of the world that you didn't pay any attention to. Let's say you are a Hyatt. Right. So you have your business empire and hotel empire, and all of a sudden you hear about this Airbnb that's taking part of your business, or you are a taxi driver, right? And you're doing your thing. Maybe you have your company that's you invested your effort and money in really building that business for yourself, and all of a sudden there's something called Uber, which is a mobile app actually that's really disrupting your business. So the cornerstone of the programs and services that we provide is really to help senior executives to see that what are those emerging technologies, what are those trends that are happening here that can potentially disrupt their industries the way they understand them. So that's one side of it. And the other side of it is that you really need to have that outside perspective in order to innovate within your business and take it to the next level. So that growth angle is very important as well. And that's what we do with our services as well. So we really put together programs, custom programs in a lot of sense. We do have some open enrollment programs where we customize them for your industry, for your business needs, and help you understand what are those trends that you need to be aware of going forward, what is happening here, what are the latest innovations in Silicon Valley that will help you to take in the next level. And you as a leader, what is it that you want to be, how it is that you want to lead, to really live up to that promise of your industry, to live up to your full potential, and to really take your career or your business, your entrepreneurship to the next level.
Understood. So, Victoria, can you tell me, like, mostly leaders, business leaders come to you for this, for the consulting or the services. What challenges do they face, and how do you help overcome these challenges?
Yes. So one challenge I already mentioned that you don't know what you don't know. This is the biggest challenge of the innovation, right? So you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to happen, but you can run scenarios, right? So you can talk to your peers, to people like you who are already going through the same challenges, or maybe they already found a solution. They're willing to share those examples with you. So you don't know what you don't know. That's one of the biggest challenge. The other challenge is that once you know what you want to do, how do you actually get there? So
Yeah.
a lot of challenges that leaders come to experience really comes like, how do I take the organization with me? How do I actually motivate people to get on the same page, to also be innovative, to also be proactive? How do I change the culture of the organization that could actually support that growth and make innovation a sustainable process within the organization? And the third challenge, which is a very personal challenge, but it actually has a real implications in real business, is my own mindset. So I'm very busy. I'm tired, right? There's so many things that are going on around me. So the burnout is a really big challenge. And that's why we have programs around burnout as well. So how do you actually sustain that? How you be a better leader, especially now when artificial intelligence is really changing the way we work and live?
So, Victoria, as you mentioned about stress and burnout, how do you balance your professional and your personal life?
I like to think about it not in terms of balance. I like to think about it in terms of harmony. So when people say balance, it's almost like, oh, there's work and there's life. And if there's more work, there's less life. And if there's more life, there's less work. But in the reality, your sense of flourishing, your sense of well-being really comes from several different factors. Job is just one of them. Yeah, so job sometimes it could be just means to provide financial stability because the factor really is that financial stability. So you want to have that. You cannot ignore that. You also want to have a purpose. I want to have a bigger meaning. You want to know that what you're doing actually serving a bigger purpose. So that's a big factor of that. The third one is your relationship with yourself, with your loved one, with your community at large. And the fourth one is your sense of vitality. So you think there's all these components that need to come together in the right proportion for you to really experience that level of harmony. So that's how I approach this. And that's how I talk to the executives who come to us. This is what we teach them as well, how to organize your life so that you have all those components in different proportions, in different stages of your life, so that you could feel that you have all that energy, you have all that motivation to move forward.
Makes sense. Victoria, do you think, like, on a personal level, the leaders who have faith or who follow spirituality or other aspects to it, they tend to make better business decisions?
It's an interesting question, Naveen. I can't say one way or another. So we're all coping in our own ways. For some people, it is that the spirituality that helps them to find meaning and to find purpose and to make the right decisions or better decisions. For some other people, they organize it a different way. Maybe they don't call it a spirituality. What I can tell you is that that sense of purpose and meaning that goes beyond just your own existence. That's something that tends to provide for a better kind of environment and the context to make decisions and organize your life in a way that feels fulfilling.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Victoria, coming to AI and tech, there's always some news about a new product or a new service coming into the AI space. How are you using and utilizing AI or technology into guiding and making your business leaders make better decisions?
Whatever we think about artificial intelligence, just with any emerging technology, this is a trend that we as people have. We really overestimate the impact of this technology in the short term and underestimate on the long term. So right now there's a lot of fears. Oh, AI is taking the jobs and is driving the layoffs and so on and so forth, right? So a lot of those fears are really exaggerated. What I can tell you that though, in the long term, we definitely underestimate the impact of AI. So whatever we think artificial intelligence, whatever impact we think is going to have, it's going to be more than that. It's going to be much more dramatic. It's going to be much deeper. It's going to change our lives in the way that we can't even imagine right now. But right now, in this particular moment, I can tell you that probably a lot of jobs will be um, not eliminated, but reconstructed in a way. So how you can prepare for that is really to start taking advantage of this. What is it out there that I can use right now? So between a lawyer who doesn't use AI and a lawyer who is using AI, the second one is definitely going to come on top, right? And maybe going forward, most of that work that the lawyer performs right now will be replaced by AI. But in that short and medium term, you're definitely going to have that competitive edge. The same with the companies, right? So a lot of companies are trying to figure out what it is that they want to say. From an employee perspective, it's almost like, well, how come something I paid for you before was taking a few hours for you, now it's 5 minutes and I'm paying the same money? So this is a mindset that needs to change as well. And a lot of it is really on the leadership. How do I organize the process. What do I want to achieve instead of what it is that I want, how much time I want people to spend, what it is that I want to achieve, and how do we organize the processes within the organization, the goal setting within the organization, so I actually achieve that. So the burden is almost more on the leader for that to have a much more uh, organized and conscious in the sense, leadership and management. As a leader, though, you have to look at that as well. You have to embrace this in your work. What it is that I can outsource in a sense to AI. So for me, it's a really great support. So a lot of things that took me a long time before now is taking a couple of hours. It really depends on the quality of input that you put in AI, right? So the output is going to be that. And then the training, you as a leader, you start training your own models so that AI actually understands what it is that you want as a leader. You have your own goals and your strategy, understanding and creativity and authenticity, and use AI as a tool for that. And with that, you have to start training your tool so that it actually supports your vision, not the other way around.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Makes sense. So, on the same topic, can you tell me, like, the leaders that come to you, what is the biggest misconceptions they have about AI and the tech advancements that are happening?
So there are two camps, and the first camp's like, oh, we're late. The world has moved on. We don't know what's going on. We're so late to the party. And I can tell you with all authority that you're not.
Yeah.
In a lot of sense, you're almost like you're better off because there are all those people who already made the mistakes and you can actually learn from them. And
Yeah.
that the gist of the programs that we provide, like look at all those things that have been done and the outcomes that they received. And now you can learn that and you can implement your own AI strategy the way that, more manageable, I guess, more controlled from where you are in the world. And then there's a second camp that comes like with really fear that AI is going to take over the world. And we just had that discussion. So my position is that yes, it is. It's a long time. So there's so many things that you can do right now that really that is more of a fear of that long-term impact of AI. We really need to wait and see where it's going. Meanwhile, there's a lot of things that you can do. Adoption of AI and that implementation of AI is going to take some time. But there's still humans running the companies and running the world. And you really need to think about how you actually want to incorporate this in your organization and your corporation and your work and your business so that you can be productive and you can be efficient and you can achieve your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the right approach, actually. So, Victoria, you mentioned something about learning from your mistakes, and all make mistakes. What has been your mistake and what has been your learning from that? And how have you implemented and overcome them?
So my position is there are no mistakes, only lessons.
Yeah.
Once I adopted this mindset, the life became so much easier for me. So now when people ask, like, what mistakes did you make? I don't know, but there's lots of lessons that I learned along the way. So I can tell you about my career and kind of how I came to understanding this. I was trained as a psychologist originally, so I actually got a PhD in psychology. And I thought that's what I wanted to do, and then I started working with people. And about a year, so I was like, oh no, I made a mistake. I followed my passion, and this is not it. So I need to change, right? So I pivoted into my career. I looked around and said, what can I do with all this knowledge and in psychology, and I decided that I can do marketing. And I happened to be Silicon Valley, so I decided to do marketing in high tech industry. So a lot of people said, "Well, you made a mistake. You spent 5 years of your life getting a PhD, and it was a mistake." For me, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because
Yeah.
that particular degree can be applied all this knowledge that I have and all the research skills and understanding of other people and empathy and so on and so forth. It actually provided the greatest foundation that I could ever had for my career going forward. So that's what I encourage people to do, and the executives that come to us, that's what I encourage them, the mindset to accept this way. You cannot make a mistake, right? So it's only a perception and regrets and so on and so forth. Once you shift from There are no mistakes, there are only lessons. It's entirely different game. And it's very important for innovation. So the reason I'm talking about this, why it's a cornerstone of that, for your innovation culture, if within that culture you're always afraid to make a mistake, it's very hard to produce something new. You might have a good process to reproduce what you've done before, but the disruption is real. Disruption is coming from so many different areas of our lives, and technology disruption is one of those. It could be climate disruption, it could be whatever that is. You really cannot just continue doing what you've been doing and hoping that you'll get the same result. You have to innovate. It's a mandatory it's a mandatory um, activity within the
Tactic.
organization, and for that you need to have a room for what you call mistakes and we call lessons, right? So lessons learned, design a culture that allows for experimentation, that allows for that outcome that may not have been intended, and allows for learning from that outcome so that you could actually, the next time, the outcome would be better.
In that sense, Victoria, if you go back in time and there's one thing that you could do differently or restart, what would that be?
Again, I'm gonna draw from my career, right?
Yeah.
For a long time, I
Hmm.
spent a long time in the corporate world, in a large company, in a smaller companies, as I said, and all the time I was dreaming about being an entrepreneur. So one of the things that I would have changed, I would have actually started earlier. And the way to start this earlier is if you are in a company and you're an employee, you may be manager in the company, but you are within the corporate structure. The way to start thinking about that is to treat your career as a business, right? So that's what I would have changed. Probably, start that earlier and understand that earlier, and maybe go on my own with the consulting, with academy, and whatever else business earlier.
Absolutely makes sense. Basically, own whatever you are doing, like you are running a business. So, one final question, Victoria. What advice would you give to the upcoming entrepreneurs and founders, so that they maintain the balance between the professional and the personal life?
Understand that you're not your job. So we tend to identify with our jobs, especially in kind of a um, modern modern society, modern business, the way we're taught in business schools, the way it's run in business school. Understand that you're not your job. As we discussed, we are multi-passionate, multi-dimensional human beings. For you to really be that best version of yourself and have the most fulfilling life is to understand that there are all these elements that come together. So don't identify yourself with your job. Understand that you have all those other passions that you're free to explore in addition to whatever it is that you're doing for your business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that advice. And thank you so much for accepting our invitation and joining us today, Victoria. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you very much, Naveen. My pleasure.